See you afterwards, everybody. Good evening and welcome to our forum for the Kansas City, Missouri City Council.
Could I have you pause for just about 20 seconds?
I can do that.
I'm sorry, the attendees, it must take a little bit of just a minute for the attendees to file in. They are filing in right now. So, all right, thank you so much.
Good evening and welcome to our forum for the Kansas City, Missouri City Council 6th in-district candidates in the April 4th primary election. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte Counties, and the local Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority social justice committees. I am Anitra Steele, and I am a member of the League. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We neither support nor oppose candidates or parties. Our mission is to empower voters and to defend our democracy. We envision a democracy where every citizen has the knowledge, the right, the desire, and the confidence to participate. Our membership is open to everyone. I'd like you all to know the other League members volunteering with me. Lisa Albright is our timekeeper, and our Zoom is monitored by Janelle Shuey. I lead the forum's administration team. The public has sent in the questions via the League's website, LWVKC.org. Tonight, we welcome Eric Wesson, editor and publisher of The Call, as our guest monitor. Welcome, Mr. Wesson.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. So, everyone, I wish you luck, not only with your campaign and running, but also luck tonight in getting the primary issues across that you feel are important. So I'm going to start with the candidates, and I'm just kind of go clockwise with this, if that's okay. And the first person that I have on my screen is Johnathan Duncan. Johnathan, good luck, and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, Mr. Wesson, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having me. My name is Johnathan Duncan, and I'm running to represent you in City Council in the 6th District in-district. A little bit about me. I'm an Army combat veteran. I have 10 years of service with tours in Iraq and Africa, and I wouldn't make that experience for the people to my left and to my right. When I came home, I needed the people to my left and to my right again. As a 21-year-old who had just completed the longest combat tour of Operation Iraqi Freedom, I wouldn't be here today without them. When I look beyond the veteran community, I didn't see people treating each other the same way. So I started organizing. And I've been organizing for the last 3 years here in Kansas City with the citywide tenant union, KC Tenants. And it's the closest thing that I've experienced to the bonds I forged in service. When I see how our city works for us, I don't think it does. I think that if you have money, that it works for you really well. But I think that there's a lot of people on the city council who are operating from a place of fear. I think that they're afraid to lose. And I know what real fear is, and losing an election isn't it. I think we need more city leaders who have done hard things in their life, who have had to do something harder than just run a campaign, who have had to make tough decisions, whether to put food on the table or pay the rent. I think we need more leaders who are willing to do the right thing, regardless of the politics. And that's why I'm running for city council.
All right. So next, we're going to have an introduction from Michael Schuckman. Mike, thanks for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to the League of Women Voters, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, for having us tonight. It's an honor to be here, and especially on the first day of Women's History Month. My name is Michael Schuckman. I am running for City Council 6th District in district. And I'm running because I believe it is time for a new generation of leaders in Kansas City to step up and start leading our city. We've seen how the same old politics, the same old politicians, when they keep getting elected, nothing in our city changes. I want to make sure we start making progress towards a future that is prosperous for all Kansas Cityans, not just ones that know how to have the ear of a councilman. A little bit about me. I have a background in urban geoscience. I graduated from UMKC with my master's. Since then, and even before then, I was working in the information, data, and asset management field. I've been doing that for over 10 years now. Currently, I work for the city of Kansas City, Missouri as one of their senior analysts with the water department. So again, that's something I think I'm bringing to this race. An insider perspective of what we need to fix, not only from the outside as a citizen, but internally as an employee. I definitely want to focus on equitable development for the 6th district, climate action, improving our public transit, and making sure we're building up our neighborhoods to meet our neighbors and friends where they are. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to have Tiffany Moore. Tiffany, thanks for joining us today.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Tiffany Moore, and I am also running for the 6th in-district council seat. I have been a resident of the 6th district for 25 years in the Waldo Country Club District Plaza area, and have done a tremendous amount of work already. My ask is to be able to continue that work as an elected decision-making participant in the city. So as a neighborhood leader and as I still serve on the Neighborhood Advisory Council, I have worked with many of the neighborhoods in the 6th district and some that are coming into the 6th district with the new boundaries, and have worked as far south as Martin City with their CID as well. What I want to see in my term on council, if I'm so lucky to be elected, is a better way to do development so that everything that we consider as a city is not a fight. We've got to find a way to build more consensus. I'd like to begin working more proactively with the investments that the community has already made in things like area plans, working with long-range planners. I'd like to see a very progressive future for the entire district, which does include the plaza, but also through Redbridge and Martin City and all the way over to Truce. In many areas, those investments over time have been very different, and we have an opportunity to do some really great things in the next 4 years. So I appreciate you invited me this evening, and I look forward to the dialogue.
Next, we have Ms. Cecelia Carter. Thanks for joining us, and tell us about you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Westman. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority for sponsoring this. My name is Cecelia Carter, and I'm running to be the next city councilwoman for 6th district in district. I moved to Kansas City about 22 years ago to be the executive director of the Kansas City Public School Retirement Board. That has led me on a career in public service, serving public pension trust funds for 2 cities and 2 school districts. I start with that for 2 reasons. One, to show that I have an understanding of what it means to be a fiduciary, a steward of taxpayer dollars, and how to hold our electeds true to transparency and accountable. I also bring that to your attention to show that with my years of experience in city government, I will be able to walk in as your city council person with an understanding of how city government works and how to best advocate for you and our community. Of course, I have a desire to work with communities on housing issues, on public safety issues, on making sure we have basic city services, and again, how to hold our electeds accountable, which I hope soon to be. With that, that is why I'm running for city council. Thank you.
So I'm going to start with the questions, and I'm going to start with Cecelia, and we'll just go in reverse order. So my first question to you, Cecelia, is, do you think the issues in the 6th district are the same as the issues in the 5th, 4th, 3rd, second and first? And
Yeah.
if so, why do you think they're the same? If not, why do you think they're different?
Excellent question. No, they're not the same. The issues are not the same. The 6th district itself has become considerably diversified with the new redistricting lines. But we also have to be mindful of the disinvestments that have occurred on the east side of Troost Avenue, and the disinvestment that has occurred in the 3rd and the 5th district. So as a city council person, I would look to not only represent the 6th district, but represent Kansas City as a whole and ensure that there's an equitable distribution of programming resources across 6th, 5th, especially 6th and 5th, since we butt next to each other, and make sure that we're working as a collective. We up north has different challenges north of the river, and start working more as one city, one collective city council.
Tiffany, do you think that the issues are the same or are they different?
So I actually think that the issues are very similar. It's the priorities that change between districts. Anyone that lives in Kansas City is looking for a safe place to live. They're looking for job opportunities. They're looking for good cultural amenities. They want a safe environment to live, work, play, shop. Different districts have different priorities in terms of where those fall. Some have a higher priority on safety, some may be focused on housing, some on development. Depending on the mix of residential and commercial, there may be a higher focus on business investment. But ultimately, what we're looking for is a robust, vital, thriving city. And each district has an opportunity to elect leaders that understand the priorities within that district, within that spectrum of issues. So we're going to talk a lot this evening, I'm sure, about development and about housing. And I would say that each district looks at that slightly differently in terms of what kinds of housing they need to support, what kinds of housing exist in their district, what kinds of development opportunities have been afforded to them historically, and where the gaps are. So some areas, the 6th district is very large. Some areas even have slightly different priorities than others within this district. So I think the issues are similar. It's how we prioritize and invest in them that differs.
Mike, you think the issues are the same? Do you agree with what Tiffany said?
To a degree, I definitely know that there are citywide issues in Kansas City. For instance, crime, homelessness, those permeate every district. The 6th district, especially the new parts of the 6th district, we do have different needs here. We are a majority neighborhood district. We have small businesses. And a lot of what I hear when I'm out talking to voters is, we want the basics down here in 6, and we want to not be ignored like we currently get sometimes by City Hall. We need our sidewalks fixed. We need streetlights to be working. We need to make sure our parks are in good condition, that our pools are actually open during the summer. And we need to make sure we're creating spaces for small businesses. So they're a bit different because we don't have the blockbuster projects that, say, the 4th district does for downtown. We don't have a streetcar. We don't have a baseball stadium potentially going in our district. And I think we need to make sure we're focusing on those issues that the residents of the district are telling us versus trying to lump everything into citywide. I would like to see us, be able to walk and chew gum and address those citywide issues while embracing the ideas of the 6th district residents. That's something City Hall hasn't been great at in the past, and I think we can improve on in the future.
Johnathan? Do you think the issues are the same?
No, I don't think the issues are the same. When we look at the 6th district, especially when we were talking about earlier before the camera started, the new 6th district, right? So the new 6th district is essentially from 43rd Street, which is the plaza, from State Line to Troost, to Bannister Road, from State Line to Highway 49, all the way to Martin City, right? The district is now the whitest district. It's now the most affluent district. So to sit here and tell me the districts of the issues of the 6th district are exactly the same as the 3rd and the 5th is just not true. But I will say, though, that when we look at the problems facing our city, I look at the problems such as public safety and crime. We can't sit here and say that the 6th district's in a bubble. If we're not addressing the issues in the other districts holistically, trust and believe the issues of crime will permeate into the 6th district, right? So when I think of crime specifically, I think of communities that do not have their needs met. So we need to make sure that we are addressing community needs in the rest of the districts, so that we can be sure that the 6th district is not facing those residual issues. But trust and believe also that the city's in a housing crisis. And if I'm working in the 6th district, such as pouring coffee or serving food, I probably can't afford to live here. And that's a separate problem that's different than in the 3rd district or the 5th.
You said the city has a housing crisis problem. What does that look like? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so increasingly, you can't afford to live here. Our rents have skyrocketed since the pandemic. And I have an issue with that the city council passed recently to define affordable housing as a $1,200 one bedroom. My question is, affordable for who? I think that when we're passing ordinances to address issues such as the housing crisis, that they are actually reflective of the people who live in our city. The way that they got to that number was that they took the aggregate of Johnson County and all the surrounding areas. They dreamed up or adjusted the median income based on those areas, and they came up with about $92,000. I don't know many people in the city that make $92,000, and I don't know many people in this city who can afford a $1,200 one bedroom. So I think that when we are addressing the housing crisis, and specifically when we talk about these shiny new objects, whether it be a downtown stadium or whether it be an entertainment district, who's going to work in those districts to make it that people want to go there? It's the workers. It's the people who are serving your drinks, that are serving your food, that are providing the sanitation services. And my question is, where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? So when we look at the housing crisis, and increasingly, I applaud the city council for properly and fully funding right to counsel, but we have to do more. If we're really going to ensure that everybody who wants to live in this city can stay.
Tiffany, the council that you'll come into, the previous council, the one that's sitting now, says that they're going to eradicate homelessness in the next 5 years. So tell me what your first steps would be toward making that happen.
So I think that we have to look at housing.
Is it doable? Let me say this. Is it doable?
Fully eradicating in 5 years, that will be tough. But it's going to take a very holistic approach. This is the spectrum of houselessness is very broad. Most of what we see visually that sometimes folks find uncomfortable is chronic homelessness. But we also have transitional homelessness, and we have episodic homelessness. These are folks who have, or for one reason or another, have suddenly found themselves in this position. Perhaps they have been able to provide for themselves over time, but as Johnathan pointed out, rents have increased. We've had inflation. Many people lost their jobs as the pandemic impacted employers, but we also have things like medical debt. Those things create a situation that if we are in a position to assist and fully support a household or a family for a period of time, can lift back out. That is different than chronic homelessness, which may be very entwined with things like addiction or mental health. So for us to come close to eradicating that, we have to find a program and implement programs that address each of those types of homelessness and the root cause, and then work on those independently.
Okay, so Mike, you sworn in, you find your way to your office. They're on your desk on the top shelf is eradicating homelessness in 5 years, what's the first thing that you start doing?
I think that is a lofty goal, and I really hope we can do it. The first thing I would do is make sure that our departments and our staff with the city that go out and talk to the homeless and or those intervention teams, that they are fully staffed. That's a citywide problem, you know, my department included. We can't find people to do the work. On top of funding the initiatives, we need to find the people to go out there and do the work. I know intervention works because the example I used, there was a lady that was living on a bench at 63rd and Swope. I contacted our city's homeless prevention coordinator. I contacted Councilwoman Park Shaw's office. The councilwoman herself went out there multiple times. Our housing interventionist, he went out there multiple times. I believe our police contacted her multiple times. And eventually they were able to get her off the bench, get her moved off there, and get her into somewhere safe before winter really got cold. I guarantee you, if she had been on that bench the last few months, she would not have made it. So I know intervention works. We just do not have the people right now and the funding on top of that to go out into the community and reach all these people. And that's the thing, we can't reach everyone. I wish we could. Some people just will not want to come in. And we need to find ways to make sure they have access to services still, so we don't end up with people that get into really bad situations in the cold or in the heat of Kansas City summers or winters.
Okay, Cecelia, you just been sworn in, you're on the elevator, you walk in the office, bingo. Here's a stack of stuff this tall in there. First thing on the agenda is the homeless situation. What's the first thing that you do?
You know, one of them said it is a lofty goal to have it eradicated in 5 years, but we could put a good dent into it. And so one of the first things I do is to make sure that we are properly staffed and meet with departments to understand what it is they need to do their jobs successfully, because this is not just one department's responsibility. It is a citywide responsibility. And also, do we work with our local leaders and our church groups to identify what programs can they immediately address to neighborhoods to address some of the homeless and houselessness? You know, there's room for what I would say are the easy corrections. So, you know, the single female that's out on the streets, can we gather them together and into one type of housing that can at least take care of them and provide them safety? Children, we know that we have houselessness issues with children couch surfing. And so those are the things I would do, is to work with our departments. What do you need to ramp you up and get you out there ready?
All right, thank you. What is the biggest threat facing small businesses in Kansas City? And what would you do to strengthen our city's small business community? Mike, let's start with you.
All right. I think the biggest barrier I've heard is the processes we have in place currently to get a small business started. It is very cumbersome to get things through City Hall a lot of the times, unless you have the right connection. We need to make sure, again, staffing wise, the department that handles this can get those permits, get applications through. If there needs to be inspections for health and safety, we need to make sure we're getting those through so we're not standing in the way of small business. Also, I think lead by example. As a city, we need to really promote our small businesses. We've done a good job at the new airport. A lot of the spaces in there are filled by local business, but we can still do more and encourage, especially in blighted areas. Recently, I went on a tour of the South Kansas City area that was actually in the 5th district. And I grew up in that area, in the Loma Vista, Bannister area. It looks like a third world country at this point, and we need people to go in there and start those small businesses and help revitalize their communities. Someone, I guarantee, in that district wants to start a coffee shop or a small bakery or some kind of store. We need to make it easier as a city for them to get access to everything they need to get started, and then kind of walk them through the process and make sure they don't fall through the cracks and they don't lose that momentum going into starting this new business.
Okay, Tiffany.
I
What's the
think
biggest
that,
threat to facing small businesses in Kansas City?
so I actually have been a small business owner in Kansas City myself. I had a consulting firm for about 7 years. And I would echo what Michael said. So I'm going to jump off on kind of a different aspect of that. So beyond the processes within the city, there is a process of curating and strategically orienting a group of businesses that have similar customers, that have similar needs, that can cross-populate and help each other be successful. We have CIDs and other business associations all across the city. I would like to begin to empower them a bit more to leverage that kind of business strategy and curate, literally seek out businesses to fill in their retail storefronts, their manufacturing and industrial zones that actually help each other. There's an example here near me where a small business didn't last very long, but it had no similar business types anywhere within driving distance. So this would have been so much more successful if there had been some similar business near them that would create a destination for the potential consumers or the shoppers. Shopping malls do this. More singularly owned open districts do this, but as just business districts, we don't often do this. And so we don't take advantage of foot traffic and shared economies. And so I think that kind of strategy would go a long ways for small businesses that maybe can't hire a consultant for that purpose.
Johnathan.
I think that the main issue facing small businesses, right, is similar to what Mike said. The process itself, the red tape. We have businesses drowning in red tape, trying to get just simple rezoning. I know that McLean's Bakery is just trying to expand on the business they already have and are having a tough time doing that. Right. The other issue, though, that hasn't been touched upon is access to capital. We need to stop chasing the shiny prize, such as Cerner or the Power and Light, and actually start funding our small businesses, which together are the largest employer in our city. Right. They are the backbone of our city. We need to start treating them as such. We look and we see what happens when we chase the shiny prize. Look what happened with Cerner. We got empty buildings now in Southeast Kansas City. We look at the Power and Light. We are still subsidizing the Power and Light. It was not a good investment. But when we look and we start funding and encouraging local entrepreneurship, we know that we can win, and we're not risking as much. We're not leveraging as much. So I think that we need to change our focus on what we're subsidizing and start subsidizing more small businesses who are really the employer generator in our city.
Cecelia, what's the biggest threat facing small businesses in Kansas City, and what will you do to help strengthen these small businesses?
Well, I do have to echo what the others have said. We all know it's the red tape and how to navigate through licensing and et cetera. But also Johnathan touched on something. It's the capital for small businesses and more small business collaboration, co-ops, so that they can work with each other and off of each other. You know, here in the 6th district, we have a shopping area, Brookside. And how long have some of those storefronts been empty, right? A couple of years now, where stores have closed or moved and those storefronts are empty. Some of the larger spaces, and granted that is a privately owned, but work with the owners and the developers. Some of those larger spaces could have been cut into smaller square footage, and smaller businesses could have afforded to rent space in there. as a city, can we work with small businesses and offer them pop-up opportunities to get their names out? So it's looking at out-of-the-box ways to help small businesses get exposure in the city, because as what was said, small businesses are the foundation and backbone of Kansas City. So I would look to help them a lot more.
All right, Tiffany. Do you like TIFs? Yes or no?
That's a tough question. So the
That's
purpose.
why I'm here, to ask
Yes.
the tough questions.
The purpose of them is to incentivize projects that wouldn't otherwise be affordable, be viable from a business investment perspective. And there are some that we've invested in that probably weren't deserving of TIFs or maybe haven't returned that value. I would like to see those same tools made more available to Kansas City residents. And I talked about this earlier today at another forum. Some of those kinds of incentives are available to homeowners and to community members for business investments. They don't always have to be for the big shiny projects, as Johnathan refers to them, because those are big and shiny. But we could do a whole lot more if we did much smaller ones that literally supported small business and legacy homeowners, community members. So I think the answer is it depends. It depends on whether the investment of those public dollars or the abatement of those taxes returns value to the city. Is the trade-off of losing tax revenue off of those improvements to school districts and the mental health fund and the other receivers of those tax dollars, is it balanced by the value or the investment in the community for the city as a whole? It has to make sense and add value to the city before we look at those kinds of investments of public funds.
Johnathan, TIFs, yes or no?
If we're using community tax dollars to fund projects, we need to have a tangible community benefit for those projects. So if there isn't a tangible community benefit to that project, then no. And again, it has to be a tangible community benefit, right? Not just the vibes of the developer saying, well, I need this TIF because, really, I really need this 15, this money in order to be viable. We need third-party analysis on these projects. We need to ensure that, as Tiffany said, that if we're going to balance the fact that we're going to defund our schools, we're going to defund our children, we're going to defund our libraries, we're going to defund our roads, that there needs to be a tangible community benefit to these projects. And I think a tangible community benefit looks like, is this project going to provide and address a community need, such as I said before, right? Affordable housing. Is it going to address, the climate crisis? Are we investing in some type of renewable green energy fields that are going to provide, good jobs in our city? And the answer is no, and we can't find that this is providing an actual community benefit, then it's not a fair exchange. And it should be no. And I think that, Kansas Cityans are tired of tips being handed out like candy, and we're not getting anything in return.
Cecelia, TIFs, yes or no?
It depends on the details, right? So as everybody has already talked about, if there's a tangible benefit to the community.
What would you consider to be a tangible benefit?
Mm-hmm. Is the developer offering affordable housing out of the project? Is the developer ensuring that local residents are employed, right? That there's employment. And we can go on and on and on, but the real key to me is there a community betterment agreement associated with the project with strong clawback provisions should the developer not meet what they have promised to do in exchange for the TIF? I think that is something that the city is just starting to realize, that we need to make sure there are provisions that we can claw back on the taxes that have been abated should the developer not meet the promise, because the TIF is because of a promise, that the city can go back after it and collect back taxes.
Mike, you know, they came in and they kind of got aggressive with the TIFs, but one of the things that I've noticed over the past 3.5 years is development has slowed down.
Mhm.
So is it one of those things that you cut off your nose to spite your face? And what would you do to recharge TIF development in the city?
So this is actually a subject I focused heavily on in my graduate research, and how, back in the mid 80s, TIFs were a great idea to start the redevelopment process of the crossroads. We've seen what it has become, though, because of TIFs, where the original people that started that, the artists mainly, got priced out of that area. And I think that's what too much of a good thing basically will get you. And if we keep doing that across the city, people will get priced out. So we need to focus on, I think Tiffany mentioned it, giving these TIFs to maybe a small business that can't afford to have that tax burden on top of them. If they have that little bit of leeway, I think that helps them versus giving it to a giant developer like we just saw in the news last week, Mac Properties. They didn't get their money from the city council, so they went to the ATA trying to circumvent the process and still get money. Thankfully, residents of the city stood up and said, not on our watch. But if you're going to do it in a smart way. Make sure you're having those carve outs if it's an apartment complex for affordable housing. When I say affordable, $1,200 a month is not affordable, as the city says. We need to renegotiate that. But also focus on those small businesses. Give them that little bit of leeway, especially like I said earlier in our blighted areas. And I think that'll reinvigorate development in the city on a local level versus a multinational corporation level.
So this is a yes or no, no explanation. Yes or no. Do you support a downtown stadium, Cecelia?
Maybe.
Yes or no?
Depends on,
Get off
again,
the
depends
fence.
on the details. It depends on the details.
So is
And we
that
don't know them
no?
yet.
Have you been following it?
Yes, I have.
Okay,
Right.
so if they were to call for it today, what would your answer be? Yes or no?
I would say yes. I've seen cities with downtown stadiums. But again, it depends
Tiffany.
on the details.
Tiffany, yes or no?
And you're
Downtown
recording this,
stadium.
right? You're gonna put this out there forever. I think that I'm a yes. And as long as, we can make sure that it doesn't impact, that we don't wipe out entire neighborhoods. That's the hill that I sit on is neighborhoods. We can't do that.
Johnathan, yes or no?
It's gonna be a no for me. Not with
Mike,
taxpayer money.
yes or no, Mike? You muted.
There we go. I'm going to echo Johnathan on this one. No, unless it's privately financed.
All right, so I got another question here. Have you all been following the issues with the Kansas City, Missouri Police and Fire Department throughout? Since you live here, you've heard about them. So one of the problems that we have within both of those groups is diversity. So diversity has been an issue throughout Kansas City, north of the river, south of the river, east of Truce, west of Truce. What have you done to make changes in the culture in the city that you're in to allow a greater mix of citizens to serve? What have you done in the area of diversity? Mike.
All right. The main thing I've done, as a current city employee, I helped restart our LGBT resource group for city employees, KC Proud. And I think that just brings awareness to diversity and the need for diversity in our city. I would love to see more employee resource groups across our employment ranks, maybe one for Latino members. I could help get that started. But I think diversity helps breed ideas as well. If you're getting ideas from one set of the population or one economic status of people, you're not going to have a lot of creativity. And in my experience, that really is what diversity brings to the table. And when you have more voices, you end up with that better product, I think. You're not just getting the same old thing from, the same old processes and politicians, what have you. So I really want to see more diversity in, how we recruit as a city, how we walk and talk as a city, even as at council all the way down. We need to make sure we're sending this message. And especially in a state like Missouri, we need to send a message that Kansas City is on board for diversity and inclusion, even if the rest of the state or Jefferson City is going to push back against us.
Johnathan, policy. What policies would you move to implement to create diversity in the police department and the fire department?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost with the KCPD, if we're going to be having officers walk our streets, patrol our streets with weapons, then they need to be reflective of the community that they're patrolling, meaning that, they are the only city employees that do not have a residence requirement. I would want to bring that back. I think that when we look at the Kansas City Fire Department and we look at the leaked reports and the Kansas City Star report on the culture of the Kansas City Fire Department, you're going to want to work with those individuals who are facing the issues, right, and uplift those voices when we're crafting policy solutions. My campaign is based in co-governance. When it comes to diversity, right, that the people closest to the problems are closest to solutions, whatever those may be. For an instance, as far as my campaign is concerned, my campaign manager is a Northlander, born and raised in the North. My treasurer is a Muslim. My writer lives on the east side. And again, these aren't just people on my staff. These are my community. These are my friends. I'm a community organizer. We say that we organize across the lines that the other side uses to divide us, meaning that if we want to organize and be effective in whatever space that we're in, that we have to cross those lines, that we have to organize on those across the aisle. So I walk that walk.
Cecelia, two things you have to deal with as a city council person with the collective bargaining agreement. One is the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, and one is 42. What do you do to get them to change their policies to create the diversity that you want to see in the police department and fire department?
Yeah, great question. We have to deal with, as you said, the diversity. So in my past, what I have done to address diversity on boards that I have sat on and in positions I've sat in, leadership, executive positions I've sat in, is I make sure I open the door, right? So I'm opening the door to allow people to come in and interview and apply for positions and get onto boards. So with the police department, particularly, what Chief Graves, I know she is quite aware of this issue, but it is about recruiting people from the community. I agree with Johnathan. Bring back the residency requirement. Have our police officers living in the communities that they're patrolling. Work with the FOP to open the doors to more people of color, to more women candidates, and help them get through the training and cadet process, and offer, police is a hard job, and offering services to them to help them stay on the job.
Tiffany, what do you do with the FOP and 42 when it comes time for contract negotiations?
Relative to diversity?
Yes.
I think it would be helpful to implement some kitchen cabinet style internal subsets. I think that there are certainly a slice of the employees in any business, and I'll include the fire department and the police department in that just have bad thoughts, right? Their thinking just isn't as clear as it needs to be on what diversity means and why it's important to walk that talk and to be really clear in understanding what it feels like on the other side of those interactions, right? There's a certain subset of employees that just don't understand what the other side hears. So thinking about how you begin to bring those conversations down to an interpersonal level, giving those folks an opportunity to hear from the other side of those interactions, what it feels like to be discriminated, to be harassed, to feel demeaned or belittled, to feel that your presence in that particular employment sector is less than, and put a human face on those interactions. If we could begin to create those sort of working groups or kitchen cabinets within the organizations, as opposed to a hierarchical structure that might be disciplinary oriented, I think it would go a long ways to identifying where the issues are and bringing about more organic resolutions.
Cecelia, yes or no? That means yes or no. Cecelia, local control of the police department should come to Kansas City, yes or no?
Yes.
Cecelia, yes or no?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Tiffany, yes or no?
Yes.
Johnathan, yes or no?
You better believe it.
Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%, unequivocally.
Mike, yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
So, one last question along this line. Yes or no? Do you take campaign contributions and support from the FOP and 42? Yes or no, Mike?
No.
Johnathan? Yes or no? Do you take campaign
No, I don't.
contributions and support from those two groups, either one of those two groups?
I don't.
Tiffany,
I have not, no.
if they come up with a big fat check, you say, no thanks?
I don't know that I could say that. I need to understand what the purpose is, right? I don't know.
The purpose is to buy your vote for Congress.
Well, so let me answer it this way. My vote's not for sale for anyone. If you want to donate to my campaign, it's because you believe in what I'm saying here. You're supporting
Right.
what I'm saying here. And I don't care who's giving me the money. No one owns my vote.
Cecelia, yes or no?
No, I'd have to say no.
Okay, so the next question here is, right, what is right balance of paid versus free parking in downtown Kansas City? Should you pay to park or should you have free parking in downtown Kansas City? Speak to both parking lots and parking meters. Should you be able to park downtown for free? What about the parking meters? Should you have to pay them? And what are you paying for? They say for street repairs. Well, you're already paying taxes for street repairs. So should you have to pay taxes for street repairs and pay the parking meter? Mike.
I knew you were going to come to me for that one first. I think as far as parking meters go, those are a good tool to raise revenue, but also prevent people from parking all day in one spot and taking up a place where a business might need people to come and go a little more quickly. So yeah, those definitely can be implemented. And I would like to see the system work a little better. When my boyfriend and I go downtown, sometimes we cannot get the system to work. There's an app you use a lot of the time, and it never connects. So we need to maybe focus on the IT side of that a little bit if we're going to collect, real revenue. As far as parking garages, if it's a city-owned parking garage like Barney Alice Plaza, I would say let's make sure that's free to the public. So we encourage people to come downtown and go to events at our convention center, at Municipal Auditorium, and so on. But if it's a private garage, I would say they should be able to charge. Hopefully, they won't go out of their minds and charge us, $15 a minute. I've been to LA. The parking there is a lot more expensive than it is here. So the one parking garage I do have an issue with is the ones at Power and Light. I remember when that development was first being brought up, the parking was supposed to be free. And you go down there on a Friday, Saturday night, it is not free. So if they want to get people downtown, especially in that district that we're still paying for, maybe make that parking free as well.
Free parking or not, Johnathan?
Yeah, we're focused on the wrong issue. Right now, if you charge for parking downtown when we don't have a transit system that's good to use, right? I mean, then you're essentially saying that if you don't have a car, or excuse me, if you're poor and you're wanting to get downtown, you can't afford to go downtown, and that's not right. Right. So I think that we need a transit system first and foremost that everybody is excited to use, and we don't have that. So without a good transit system, you can't create deterrence to using cars. That's just where we are. So if we're going to be focused on, if we're going to provide parking, if we're not going to provide parking, we need to be focused on our transit system. We need to be focused on ensuring that we have a transit system that is exciting to use because it works, it's on time, and there's a bunch of different ways to get to where you want to go, which includes downtown, which means that you're not paying for parking in the first place.
But the buses are free.
Yeah, but they don't work. So what good is something if it's free if it don't work?
What do you mean it doesn't work? What do you mean it doesn't work?
I know for a fact that if you want to use the bus to get downtown, and you live in the 6th district, it's going to take you a while if you can catch the connecting buses to get there. So when I say they don't work for people who need to get somewhere in a decent amount of time.
Okay, Tiffany.
I think you do.
Parking meters.
Yeah, I think you do have to have parking meters, and one of the reasons for parking meters is not to pay for streets, but to turn over parking, which is why we have different zones. It's incredible. We talked about small businesses earlier. It's incredibly important, particularly for a small business, that the people that want to dine there, shop there, get services there, can get there. And so if we have streets that are just open and free, the long-term parking that might preclude folks from getting easy access to their businesses is an important thing. So that's why we have some places that are 30 minutes and some that are 3 hour. That's directly related to the business activity in those areas. And so that's important to protect. I also think that it helps encourage us to think more about transit. And so this is a chicken and the egg situation. We don't have the resources to invest more in buses and additional service times because we don't have quite enough users yet. We don't have quite enough users yet because it takes, in some cases, a long time to get from point A to point B because we don't have enough service time. So that's an aspect of the city as we get more residents and become denser in some areas that haven't seen density in the past, that we're going to have to perhaps lead as elected officials taking the bus to work to make that clear that it's not just for someone who can't afford a car, but maybe someone who doesn't want to pay for a car or sees the value in terms of environmental climate issues in taking transit as opposed to driving. So
what did you say? What did you say the reason for the parking meters were?
To turn over parking appropriately. So there are shorter time limits in areas where the business type needs more steady turnover for the customers to come and go. And you'll see 2 or 3 hour parking in areas where there isn't foot traffic or businesses that look for that turnover in customers.
Cecelia, parking meters, free parking.
You know,
What do you do for downtown.
Okay, great question. That you know, parking meters, I should say, are used, as Tiffany was explaining, to help generate turnover and avoid people leaving their car in front of businesses all day. So we do kind of need that to kind of keep turning over the traffic. Now, as far as garages and paying for garages, I mean, we do have areas of the city that offer the free parking garage, and we know how that's paid for. It's part of the CID, a la La Plaza. We don't pay for parking there. So there are opportunities to use free parking in downtown areas, and who is also using it. We have to also remember that it's not, downtown Kansas City is not just the Kansas City residents, but it's people visiting as well. So, you know, offering opportunity for people to come into Kansas City, take advantage of the amenities, the shows, the things that are events. Let's encourage them to then spend some time in Kansas City and spend their spend their dollars.
Okay, so we were talking about transportation, and here's one of the questions that they have here. What should be the plan for transporting thousands and thousands of visitors to Arrowhead Stadium and all over the city during the Soccer World Cup in 2026? You all will be in office while that happens. What should be the plan for transporting those people around? And Cecelia, I'm going to start with you.
Great, thank you. You know, and you're absolutely right. 2026 will be here before we know it. So now I think it's a great opportunity for the city to start working with neighboring jurisdictions and set up a plan to start transporting people. People are going to have to stay over in Kansas City, Kansas, Johnson County area, north of the river. You know, they're going to be all over the city. And so start working on a plan to use the services of other jurisdictions to help transport people back and forth to the various games.
Okay. Tiffany?
Yeah, I mean, we already have a regional transit alliance now that has connections and routes that go between Kansas City, Missouri itself, and some of the suburban areas. My expectation is that the ATA would develop a special set of routes with a special set of route times specifically for that event. What would be wonderful is if we could do something that actually got folks that live here really comfortable with riding the bus during that time. If we did some marketing, some outreach, some event-based things that highlighted residents specifically of Kansas City so that they got more familiar with using the bus line, and that could have some carryover ridership beyond the games. I think that would be a fabulous sort of longer term impact on our ridership and the use of public transportation if we could leverage the functionality and the ease of getting to those games or getting around during those games. So those of us that live here are still going to have to go to the grocery store, and we're still going to have to go downtown for sort of ordinary things while there's a lot of extra folks in town. And so if we can realize the benefit of everyone using transit lines that are very highly publicized and specially set up for those events, I think that would be really helpful to us long term.
Johnathan, do you get along with everybody? And if you don't, how do you function on the board, the city council, with people that you just don't get along with?
Yeah, I don't know anybody who gets along well with everybody. So I'm the director of operations for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. And I am used to working with people who have completely divergent points of view than my own. But I think it's important, right? As a community organizer, we know that we need to organize across the lines that the other side would use to divide us. So I have to assume first and foremost that everyone's a good faith partner in crafting solutions to better the city. And I have to find their self-interest. And in order to do that, Eric, I have to get to know them, right? We have to sit down, have a one-on-one and understand what makes them tick, what vision they want to see for this city. And then we can get clear on where we align and where we can work together to craft solutions. I think that I have to believe that everybody on city council wants to see this city thrive. I'm going to start every conversation with that assumption. I think that if we focus on our divisions and where we aren't aligned, we're never going to get anywhere. And I think we've seen what happens on city council when people don't assume that their colleagues are good faith partners, and it hurts us all.
All right, Mike, what is that you got? Sideburns or a beard?
Oh, just scruff. I don't like to clean shave, so.
Okay. Well, I like people that are clean shaved. So you come in the city council and you're not clean shaved, but we got to work together. And I told you I want everybody clean shaved. How do we get along?
Well, I mean, if it gets me a vote, I'll shave anything I need to. So I think the way we need to find to get along is to find that common ground. I've learned a lot. I've been friends with our Senator Greg Razor, who's serving us in Jefferson City for several years now, and he is a master of finding common ground with people. And I've been learning how he talks to people, how he gets people who are, his exact opposite on his side on issues, especially LGBT issues. And that's what we need to learn how to do. We need to learn how to talk to people in a non-confrontational manner so we can explain our point of view. We're obviously going to have differences. There'll be days I have differences with other council members. We might not agree on the exact funding number for something, but we need to be able to sit down and discuss it like adults and learn that art of compromise and have a mutual respect for each other. I think if we apply that model, this next council will be a very successful one. And we might also make some headway with our colleagues in Jefferson City, who it seems like every time we do something in the city, they want to kind of take that back or slap us down. If we learn how to do that compromising between ourselves, we can take that to Jefferson City and get even bigger wins for the city.
Cecelia, you have on a blue top today. I don't like blue tops. I don't like people in the 6th district because they are bougie and they got everything they need. So now I got to work with you and you got a plan and you need my vote, but I don't like you. So win me over.
It's funny. That has been my career. I mean, as the director of public pension funds, I have had to work with state representatives, state senators. That I've worked in both Missouri and Nebraska. I have had to work with rural Nebraska senators in order to get to the point of getting legislation passed. It is about finding common ground first and working from there, and then start work. Sorry?
How do you do that?
Oh, the time is not on. It's finding what the basic need is for the situation. So whatever the situation is we're addressing, finding what that basic need is, and that we all can agree that here is the basic need. It's usually how do we get to the basic need that's at issue, right? Very often we're agreeing that something needs to be done, but how do we get to it? And that's where the compromise comes in. That's where the bouncing ideas off of each other come in. I had a situation here in Kansas City where a contract was being awarded. And, there were 2 fractions that wanted that contract. And listening to everyone, I was able to say, well, what if, let's think out of the box, what if the larger firm is engaged, but have that conversation about the larger firm subcontracting with the smaller firm? So it became a win-win for everyone involved. So it's finding the common ground thinking outside of the box, and working on the parts that we don't agree on, and moving forward from there.
Tiffany, y'all got that shiny price chopper over there in Brookside with all the fresh meat and everything, the fresh vegetables. Y'all got fresh bread, milk. And I'm in a district that our grocery stores are the gas station. And you come to me wanting for me to help support a project that you've got. And I just, when you walk in my office, I'm like, win me over.
All right, so my approach is empathy. It is, I understand the reference to common ground, but really what I first need to do is see the situation, see the history, see the trauma through your eyes, and acknowledge that, and realize that there are some perspectives that are so divergent, so very different, that they do result in different thought processes, different outcomes. So that's where I'm going to start from, is doing everything I can every day to understand that other person's perspective and how they came to have that perspective. And then move from that position forward with whatever the ask is, right? So then I understand the kind of reaction that you might have and why, and perhaps I can provide information or base that project in a broader way that also makes sense to you through your eyes, from your perspective, acknowledging and empathizing with your the reasons that you've come to that perspective on whatever the topic is. And if it's food deserts, I'd love to talk about that. But yes, it has to come from a place of fully understanding, acknowledging, and taking the time to see through someone else's eyes first.
You know, I'm gonna go to the next question, but I'm gonna say this as a point of reference. One of the two biggest problems that I've seen, and I'm not gonna say which particular city council group there was, but they don't talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that for the purpose of letting you know that communication is key, and being able to talk to one another is definitely key when you're working together to try to get things done. Okay, so my last question before we get to the wrap up is, what question do you wish I had to ask you, and how would you have answered it? What question do you wish I had to ask, I would have asked you? I have to enunciate. What question do you wish I would have asked you, and how would you have answered it? Tiffany.
Ooh. So I do like to talk about housing, because I think that's an aspect that many of us have spent a lot of time on and have some thoughts on, but also is a topic that's really important and top of mind for many folks. I think maybe the other aspect of that is relative to neighborhood safety. So I think those two often go hand in hand. I like to talk about our housing ecosystem. That kind of visualization resonates in the 6th district because we have such a broad range of neighborhoods, building types, of development types. We have very suburban developments to the south, and we have dense high rises to the north, particularly now that the plaza is being added. And when we talk about affordable housing, you'll often hear me use the term attainable housing. Each of those groups sees that conversation very differently. And that goes directly to your previous question, empathizing with the perspective that each of them has and how they're internalizing the use of those terms, and understand what housing security, what homelessness, what affordable housing means to them, and helping them through that conversation to a place where we can really have large conversations that lift the entire district in terms of housing availability, being able to afford it, and how they use their housing dollars, which also include utilities. That's a set of questions I anticipated, and I do like to talk about when I'm given the opportunity.
Cecelia, what question do you wish I would have asked, and how would you have answered it?
You know, I think in going around the 6th district and talking with residents in neighborhoods, One of the things I hear a wish list of is availability of the city council, right? That they don't see city council, they don't, the representatives, or, hard to get a hold of. This is technically a part-time position. Yeah. And I think what people need to understand and understand, at least with me, is that this will be a full-time for me. I will have regular office hours and be available. There's a lot that to be done with the city and to work with our neighborhoods on. And I think it's going to be tough with everything that's coming forward to be a city council person and try to hold down a full-time job, right? So I think that it's important for people to understand, for the constituents to understand that for me, this will be a full-time job for me, and that I will be available to work with neighborhoods and work with our constituents on the issues that we need to address in the 6th district in the greater Kansas City community.
Johnathan, what question do you wish I would have asked, and how would you have answered it?
Yeah, I wish you would have asked what my vision is for Kansas City. And I would have answered it by saying that I think everybody who lives in this city or who wants to live in this city should be able not only to live in this city, but thrive in this city. I think that we all want, neighborhoods that we feel safe in, that we all want sidewalks we can walk down in and push a baby stroller if we have one. That we want grocery stores, as you said, right, that are in our neighborhood, that have that good produce, mangoes, hopefully, and good meat. And how we achieve that, right, is that we have to ensure that we are investing in our people. And so often I think that we are investing in buildings, we are investing in projects with the hope that something will trickle down to the people. But first and foremost, we need to ensure that everybody can afford to live here. And as long as we have and continue to invest in housing that's on the market, meaning that it's subject to market whims, I don't think that's ever going to be the case. We need to invest in municipal social housing, and that looks like housing that is off the market, that is democratically controlled by the residents who live there, and that is publicly backed, right? And so ensuring that it's permanently forever. Permanently affordable forever. And we don't have that right now. And that is my vision for a Kansas City where we can all thrive, not just survive.
Mike, that question that you were sitting on the edge of your seat waiting for me to ask that I didn't ask, what was it and how would you have asked it? Answered it, rather.
Okay. I think the question I was hoping for was, why is the city so bad at managing our assets and what can we do to improve it? Asset management is a subject near and dear to my heart. As I said, I've been working in that field for over 10 years. And as I campaign more and more, I just hear that people are wanting those basic assets maintained or even built. Sidewalks, now that we have gotten through a 14-year backlog of sidewalks in this city of repairing them, we still have residents that are going through the PIAC process, which start to finish takes roughly 3 years if they want to get a sidewalk repaired. Those are basic city assets that we're not maintaining, and we need to do a better job of that. More and more we hear about our pools. Last summer, several pools in the city were only partially open or didn't have enough lifeguards, or they just weren't open at all. And that's basic asset management. It seems like we have this tendency to wait until the problem reaches a critical level and then we throw a crisis money at it. But sometimes it's too late. We need to focus on things, creating a system of asset management that is ongoing, that we can predict what is going to happen. And when we do that and maintain our things in the right way, we improve the quality of life for citizens throughout the city overall. And when they have that basic access to city assets.
All right, so I'm just about on time here. I'm at 7:44. We begin our wrap up. You have 2 minutes to convince everybody that's watching why they should vote for you. So we're going to go counterclockwise, and Mike, you're on.
I didn't even have a time to drink some water. So, all right. Well, thank you again to the League of Women Voters, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority for hosting tonight's event. And again, it's a great privilege to be here on the first day of Women's History Month. My name is Michael Schuckman. I'm running for the City Council in District 6 in District. I'm running because I strongly believe, as I said before, it is time for a new generation of leaders to step up and lead our city. We have seen what the old style of politics, the same old politicians that have been around for decades get us. It's not the city we want. It's not the city we deserve. I am very proud of the fact that the campaign I'm running is from the ground up. I'm not taking money or influence from corporations. I'm not part of a group. This is just me, friends and family, and dedicated friends and neighbors throughout the 6th district that are helping us reach City Hall. I am very proud of that. I also am running because I believe representation matters. As I mentioned, I'm a member of the LGBT community and the Latino community, voices that are not on the City Council at this time. If we want to increase diversity and say we're promoting diversity, we need to have that diversity on our council. I also love public service. This has been a dream of mine for a very long time. I want to make sure that I am your full-time city councilman. I will have to resign from the water department because you can't work for 2 departments at the same time. And I am looking forward to that opportunity because I am dedicated to making this city a better place for future generations, including my future children. I want to, in the next 8 years, fingers crossed, leave Kansas City in a better place than it is today. So they have that opportunity. They have what they need to live a full, prosperous life. And that is my end goal at the end of the day. I am not looking for, the next ladder to climb. I am just here to be a public servant through and through. And I hope I can earn your vote on April 4th. Thank you.
All right, now we're going to go to Tiffany.
Well,
Tell
again,
us why we should check your box.
sure. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in the forum. Again, my name is Tiffany Moore, and I am also running in the 6th in-district seat. I am one of Kansas City's biggest cheerleaders. I always have been. I've been here for about 25 years, most of the time in the same part of the city. I have a huge passion for the way our city operates. I maybe have a slightly more hopeful perspective than others because I have been someone who, without the backing of anything significant, participated on a lot of boards and got to participate on the development of the sidewalk working group and the GEO bond question for sidewalk maintenance. Those are things that I did as an individual because I chose to, I wanted to. I was a volunteer. I still spend a great deal of time volunteering, specifically in the 6th district, because that matters to me. I'm a neighborhood person at heart with a 30+ year career in development, construction, and infrastructure of public buildings and public infrastructure. That's an expertise that I'd like to bring to City Council so that we have someone who has firsthand experience in designing and planning and executing projects using the funds that come out of our tax dollars. I would also be a taxpayer, right? That's something that is important. Not only am I spending your money, but I'm spending my own money. So I look at it very from that perspective. I'd like to find an opportunity to increase some of the community building that we have going on. Neighborhoods are strong in Kansas City. We can make them stronger. But I think that there's opportunity to bring my expertise to the table to make some of our project execution more effective so that folks do feel like the things that they enjoy and the amenities that they use in Kansas City are top notch. We should be cutting edge because we're a great city.
All right, Cecelia, why should people check the ballot box for you?
Okay, my name is Cecelia Carter, and I too am running for 6th district in District City Council. I come to this fork road having had a career in public service, having been an executive in city government, having had an understanding of how to build relationships within city government and state government in order to get policies changed. That is the role of city council, is setting policies against programs and then monitoring programs. And I've had that experience on the actual execution side. So now I am asking for your vote to move me to the other side of the table, to be to set the policies and to work with staff, city staff, and communities to execute the policies that we have passed. I understand what it means to be a steward of taxpayer dollars. I have been responsible for billion-dollar trust funds. So I understand how to allocate assets and ensure equity in the allocation of such assets. As I said, I have had to open doors for smaller firms to gain access to public pension funds. I've had to open doors for people of color to gain access and opportunity. And I'm prepared to carry that position onto City Hall as your next city councilwoman. So I ask for your vote for Cecelia Carter on April 4th.
All right, and last but not least, Johnathan, and are y'all hearing the phone?
Your phone? Yeah.
Okay, that's not my phone. I have the live, whatever. My son's phone is ringing on here. I'm sorry about that. And I told him to put it on do not disturb, but one of his friends is keep on trying to FaceTime him. So Johnathan, I'm sorry.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
That's okay. I'm used to it now. Again, my name is Johnathan Duncan. I'm running to represent you on City Council in the 6th District. I wouldn't be here without the care of my community. I wouldn't be able to sit here in front of you and run for this office, run to represent you without the care of my community. And we need more leaders who are interested in that care. And I know that whether on the battlefield or in City Hall, that it's the most powerful weapon we have. And I think that when we look at the next 4 years and what our city is facing, an affordable or housing crisis, achieving local control of our KCPD, properly funding our transit systems. It's actually something that everybody's excited to use. It's going to take more than just votes on city council to make that happen. We're going to have to organize our community, and we're going to need people who care to do that, right? So again, my name is Johnathan Duncan. I'm running to represent you on city council in the 6th District. I know that together that we can organize a city where we can thrive and not just survive. I know that together we can continue to organize beyond April 4th, which is the primary vote, beyond June 20th, which is the general vote, that in order to achieve these issues, to really wrap our arms around this, we're going to have to reach out to one another. We're going to have to get to know one another. We're going to have to get to and understand our self-interest of why we want to see a better Kansas City. And that takes more than voting. That takes organizing. So again, Johnathan Duncan, I hope that you'll join me in helping us organize a city where we can thrive, not just survive. Vote on April 4th, vote on June 20th, and then help us organize to do that. Thank you.
All right, Johnathan. Panelists, you all have been great. I hope that people got a lot of information from you all to help them make a decision. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the AKA sorority for allowing me to moderate. I hope I did a good enough job, so maybe in the future they'll call me and ask me to come back and do it again. But I do have one thing to say. Cheryl, I just now saw your chat message about the lighting. I didn't know. I didn't know. And the light is right here. I could have turned it on, but she said it was giving a glare off of me. So I hope that wasn't too distracting for anyone. But thank you all so much for having me. Good luck to you with the April 4th election.
Thank you, audience, for your thought-provoking questions and your interest in the April 4th primary election. And we also want to thank our guest moderator, Eric Wesson. A recording of this forum will be available on the League's website, LWVKC.org. Your vote matters. Tonight, we've learned about the candidates for District 6 that will be on your April 4th ballot, along with the mayor to set an overall policy and budget for the Kansas City, Missouri council members serving a 4-year term. The city is divided into 6 districts and 6 at-large districts. And I learned just tonight that the districts will be changing and you are voting for where your house falls in the new districts developed that coming into be during August. Every voter in Kansas City votes for 7 council members, their own council member and the 6 at-large street. Fortunately, we are also doing candidate forums for the at-large districts. So if you go to LWVKC.org, you can see when those are scheduled and be able to see all those candidates that you will also be voting for. Take a moment and share with our candidate forums with your Facebook page, Nextdoor, and other favorite social media channels. And remember, for complete voting and candidate information, visit LWVKC.org and vote 411, which will go live on St. Patrick's Day. So after the parade, you go home, put in your address at vote 411, and it will pull up the ballot for the new districts, the ones that you will be voting at. Thank you very much, Mr. Wesson. Thank you very much, candidates. And we'll see you at the polls on April 4th. Good night.